Hi, I'm Beth, and this is Chic Crochet. Today Summer has the day off. She's out playing with her daddy. Today we're going to talk about the one thing that has sped up my crochet more than anything I have used. It has made it easier, it's made it faster, it's made it more enjoyable, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Let's talk about this yarn holder and how it has changed my entire crochet routine. For a couple of years now, I have been diligently crocheting, and after 6 months of using this yarn holder, I can honestly say that it's a crochet piece that I would replace immediately if something happened to it. If it disappeared tomorrow, I would immediately have to have another one. It's more important than any other gadgets I have. It's second only to yarn and hook. What's strange is, lately I've seen comparisons and critiques from very revered crocheters, crochet YouTubers that I respect immensely, like the Faded Wildflower and also Elise Rose Crochet. They have been critical of yarn holders and I don't really quite get it. So if you've been discouraged by what you've seen or you're uncertain as if you should try it, I would like to give you my point of view and let you decide. Elise and Katie's experiences must have been far different from mine, and also their experience is far different from mine. I'm a crocheter of a couple of years. These two are proficient and prolific crocheters who I, again, just respect and admire, and I value their opinion. But for me, this works so well, so let's talk about it. Before continuing, I am an Amazon affiliate. The link will be in the description. I may make a small commission from those links, but do not feel pressured. That is not why I'm here. If I have a recommendation that I am confident is going to make your crochet experience more enhanced, more enjoyable, more simplified, I'm going to share it. That's why I'm here, not to sell you a product. So this particular one is the Artowell Flykey. And before I added this to my Christmas list last year, I did get it for Christmas. I did watch video reviews. I believe Elise's video, I'm not sure if it was out yet. I think that one of the main ones I watched was Krista from The Secret Yarnery. I'm not sure if she used this exact one, but I remember that she really liked a model like this. So I just went on and I read the reviews, and this is the one I decided on, and boy, am I glad I did. As you can see, it has wooden construction. That is one of the things I was looking for. I did not want plastic. I did not want some sort of composite, so it is a real wood construction. Also, it has the arch and a magnetic attachment, so it's just as simple as that. It did require some assembly, but it was very simple. It was just 2 screws. So this was in 4 pieces, 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, 4 piece, and then you just attach this to this with 1 screw, and the same here. You attach the stem to this pedestal with 1 screw, and then the magnet was already in there, and you just pop and it's attached. Just from watching reviews and reading reviews and looking at different kinds, I knew that I did not want a spinner where it's like sitting here and you put the ball of yarn on and this piece spins as you pull off of it, or I knew that I wanted one that was suspended because it just seemed like this attachment and this motion spin so much easier than if it were sitting on a surface. I thought you would have to pull the yarn more, so that is why I decided on this one. This particular one holds up to 7 ounces of yarn. We're going to need some different types of yarn to make this experiment complete, so you can get a comprehensive view of what it's like to use different sizes, different fibers, also skeins versus cakes. So let's do that. I'm going to get a cake of acrylic. That was a full cake. This is also a full cake. I'll have to weigh it. I'm not sure how much it weighs, but as you can see, it's very chunky. And let's see, let's get a skein of cotton. And both the cotton and the acrylic are worsted weight size 4. Let's also get a full skein of acrylic that is not caked. So we're going to use the skein also versus the cake. And let's see. And here I've found a cake of cotton, so we're going to use that as well. This is how I used to crochet. I would take the new skein and I would pull from the center if I could find it. I know that's sometimes a challenge. And then I would just let, see right there, that looked like the center pull, but it isn't. It's the outer pull. And I'm not going to pull the center pull from this one because we are going to use the outer pull for our yarn holders. So I'm just not even going to do that. But you pull from the center. So that's what I would do, and that is the easiest if you're not using something like this, or if you're putting it in a yarn bowl, or if you're putting it in your yarn bag and you're feeding it through the hole. So I would get started and this would just roll around on the sofa. It worked just fine, but as a crocheter, then you have to stop and you have to pull, 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 pull. It doesn't just feed out of the skein naturally. That just doesn't happen. That is how I crocheted. That is how I was used to crocheting. When I asked for this for Christmas, I had no idea how much it was going to change the way I crochet and how much more enjoyable it was going to make it. Not to mention faster. Faster, 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 because I don't have to stop and pull, 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 and you're going to see why. So what are some of the other problems that we may encounter when we're trying to crochet and we are using different types of yarn holders or nothing at all? So the yarn rolls across the floor, over the sofa, or it falls in the floor, it gets dirty. If you have a cat, or in my case, a summer puppy, they will grab your yarn, try to play with it. Even Summer, even though she is a very well-behaved little dog, she doesn't get excited over things like that. If a ball of yarn is in the floor and I'm not noticing it, she will just subtly go over and start playing with it. And then, you know, I'm tugging at the yarn, I'm like, feels like I've got a fish on the end of this hook. And I'll look and Summer's chewing on it. So that is a problem for all of us pet parents. If you do put it in a container, the yarn will just completely bounce out as you're pulling. But also, if you have a nice, beautiful, expensive, handmade piece of porcelain yarn bowl, you do run the risk of pulling it off the table, or if you're sitting it in the floor, those things can break. And I know because I am also a potter. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of my pottery. I haven't done pottery in years. I had to put it aside when I started a new career, once my children got a little older. But when they were little, I did pottery all of the time and I had a really nice setup. So I have made many a yarn bowl and I've gifted them or I have sold them. Can you believe this? And I did not ever even keep one for myself. I don't even own one of my own yarn bowls. And pottery equipment is very large and it takes up a lot of space. It's a messy form of art and I really do not have a good place to do it now since we built this new house and moved into it. I just don't have a studio space, but I do still have my wheel, I have my kiln, I have all the things, but one of these days I will do it again. But that just hasn't been convenient for me in the last several years, so I do hope to get back to that again. Anyway, back to crochet. So you may be crocheting on the sofa, like we talked about, and this is what happens when you're doing that. Also, you may just have it beside you in a container, or maybe you just set it on the floor. Whether you're crocheting from a cake or a skein, this can make things difficult. Now, some of these options are really budget friendly because they're free, but time is money. But what I learned by doing it without any assistance from a tool like this, it cost me a lot of time and a little frustration. But since handmade yarn bowls are so expensive, either it be the wooden ones or the ceramic ones like I was talking about, sometimes the size is just not ideal. And let's face it, as beautiful as they are, the yarn just doesn't come out smoothly. You're still going to have to stop and pull and yank on your yarn. Project bags are portable. They hold the yarn nicely in place. And I have one and I really like it. And I do use it in the car or with travel if for some reason I can't take this with me. But I certainly do not prefer that method. I still have to stop and yank and pull. And probably in the yarn bag is the worst place that it gets tangled or it gets caught up in something else inside my bags. And as for the yarn spinners that just sit like this and they spin like this on a surface that they're attached to, those are nice, but still, I feel like you have to pull and gravity does not do the work for you, which with the suspended stem like this, as you'll see, gravity really does a lot of the work for you. So for me, this is definitely the choice. For me, it's just a no-brainer. I really struggle to understand why it's not working for other people. Unless they're using just a super big, bulky yarn, I can't really think of why this wouldn't work. Maybe they don't like the desk space it takes up, which it's pretty minimal. Or maybe they have tried the bigger yarn holders like this. I'll insert a couple of pictures that have just too many gadgets on them. I think simple is better. Maybe they just don't like making yarn cakes, and I can understand that. But again, I'm going to show you how you don't necessarily have to have a cake. You can use a skein with this. I don't want to insinuate that their opinions are not valid and the points they make for not using this aren't valid, but I just want to validate my point of why I think it's such a great tool to use. So let's do some testing. I'm going to start with the lowest barrier to entry, and that is just your basic acrylic worsted weight size 4 yarn, and this is I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby. The yarn spinner says that it will hold 7 ounces, and I'm going to weigh. I know that these skeins usually weigh more than 7 ounces. They give you a little bit of bonus yarn in here, so we're going to weigh this and just see. I just took off this sleeve, and this is Mango is the color, and there you can see it's 7 ounces or 199 grams, 355 yards, 325 meters. So let's see what it says. All right, I have zeroed out the scale and it's on ounces, and I'm going to put the skein on, and it's showing that the weight is 7 ounces and a tenth. Let's see what it is in grams. 202 grams, and the label says 199, so there we go. This is a skein that I caked, and it's also I Love This yarn by Hobby Lobby, and it's in a worsted weight acrylic, and the weight of that is 209 grams, and it's 7.35 ounces, so they gave us a big bonus in that skein. And then this one, although it looks really big, I don't think it weighs that much. It's kind of light. It's just bulky. Yeah, it doesn't even weigh 6 ounces. So our goal is to make sure that the yarn holder holds at least 7 ounces as it promised. So we weighed our yarn. We know how much they weigh. And let's start with this one, which I think was 7 ounces and a tenth is what it was. So we don't have to find the middle pull. Don't even worry about that. You're just going to go up, straight up through the middle of the skein, and I usually put my finger in there and try to separate it just so it goes through smoothly. It went on very well. I push it down a little bit because it is almost to the very top of the stem, so I'll push it down like that, and then we're going to attach it. To attach it, you just get it close to the magnet and pops right on. And as you can see, it's going to stay on just fine. So let's give it the crochet test. And if it matters, I'm using a 5.5 millimeter hook. And here we go. Just going to chain for a while. All right, so now it's having to come off itself. We're at the end of what's in my hand. And just with the tension that's in my hand, it's coming off naturally. And I'm not having to stop and pull. That is the key. So let's try one that is in a cake. So this next one is in a cake, but as you can see, you don't have to cake it. You can just use it straight off the skein. Now this one was heavier. This one is 7 ounces and over 3/10 of another ounce. So not quite 7.5 ounces, but it is well over 7. So again, I just put it right down through the middle, and I'm using the outer pull. We do not want the center pull when you're using the yarn holder. So you're going to take the yarn holder, pop it on. Now it does feed a little differently if you're using a cake versus the skein. I find that it falls off really naturally when the cake is very full like this, and sometimes just the gravity will continue to pull it and it will fall off into the floor or onto the table and it will start pooling in the floor or on the table. And if that does that and it's coming off too fast for you, I just take it and I take the end of the yarn and I tuck it in, excuse me, so you can see, I just tuck it in here at the bottom where it catches right there. And I just do that until I've used it up. And when I've gotten to that part where it's attached in there, I just loop it off and then let it start feeding again. Now, you won't have to continually do that. That only happens when the cake is very new and it's very full, and it doesn't always happen, but it has happened to me occasionally, and it hasn't been a problem. I would still much rather it feed naturally like that than me having to stop and pull before I can crochet again, so it doesn't bother me at all. This is the exact yarn that I have been using on my 4th of July USA flag afghan. So I have pulled out my afghan and I'm getting ready to start a new row of white. So we're going to try this in real time on a real life situation because I need to be working on this afghan anyway. So I'm switching colors right now and changing rows, and we're going to switch over to the white. And I've been using my yarn holder every day. Well, I always use it every day, but definitely for this afghan, it has been a real lifesaver. So now you can see it's just naturally spinning as my tension tightens up and I need more yarn. I don't have to stop, I don't have to pull. It doesn't interrupt my workflow at all. And I think about how many times you have to stop and yank your yarn. So if you have to do that every minute and you spend 10 seconds or even 5 seconds yanking your yarn, that's a lot of time you could have been making stitches. Even if that's just a minor issue, I just find it really annoying, and I love being able to just crochet and keep my workflow going and not interrupt my process. It has changed the quality of my crochet more than any other tool that I've used, even more than a hook or the type of yarn, just because I feel like my stitches are more consistent when my flow is not interrupted, and I can crochet faster, but not only faster, but I just feel like the quality of my work is better. So that's the cake. Now we'll go on to a different experiment. I'm going to just pull this off as it is because I'm going to need that later. Going to get right back to this project this evening and get some more of my stripes done. So in case you didn't see my last video, which was, I just made it a couple of days ago, so I haven't gotten that much more done, but I have gotten a lot of my stars completed. Those are going to be sewn on soon, but this is how we are looking so far. So I don't do big plushies, but I'm sure there's a lot of amigurumi makers that would be curious of how this would work with a bulky or chunky yarn. This one is not an amigurumi yarn, it's not chenille, but it is very bulky, and let's see if it fits. So it looks very fat. Will it fit? Yes, it fits okay. It does hit the arm here, but not terrible. And again, the weight of it is not a problem. And as you can see, with the large cake of white that I just used, it did not come off or even attempt to come off. That never happens to me while I'm crocheting, unless I were to knock it off the table, or I don't know, I just haven't had that happen. It doesn't come loose, it just doesn't. I'm gonna need a larger hook. I really don't have huge hooks because I don't use them. This is a boy 8mm, so let's try that. So I'm just doing some chains, and again, as you can see, my natural tension, the yarn just pulls right off and I don't have to stop and yank it. So again, it will definitely work with this type of yarn. That's not a problem at all. It just works just fine. So let's try the cotton, and I'm going to just leave it in the skein like this. I do see the center pull, I think here. I believe I've used some of this one already. So there's the center pull. I'm just going to tuck it back in there. And I've balled up the center pull, or wound up the center pull, and I'm just going to put it right through the middle like that. And then I'm going to take off the label. If I do remember correctly, I think these cotton skeins, they will collapse on themselves like that, but it really doesn't matter. I haven't had a problem with that. I always use it no matter what type of yarn I'm using, and I have not had any issues with that at all. So let's see, I'm going to go back to my 5.5mm hook. With this, I'm not making anything in particular. I'm just going to chain a little bit and let you watch. So again, even though the skein is collapsed like that, it comes off really easy from the outer pull. Not a problem at all. So again, that little experiment is another success. If you don't like the way it looks when it collapses like that, or you just don't like the way that feels, that's okay. You can cake it up too. It will still work with a cake just as well as it will with a skein. So we're gonna try that right now, and I'm gonna do it with the exact same yarn. This is I Love This Cotton from Hobby Lobby, and this is the same yarn. It's just in a cake instead of a skein. I've already caked it up. If you finished a project and you had too much pulled off, that's okay. Just wind it from the outside like this, and then when you pop it back on, you'll be ready to start again. So that's what I just did, and I'm gonna start again. Let's see how it does. If you have it like this on a table in front of you, or if you set it on something behind you or beside you, whether it's lower or higher, sometimes I sit this in the floorboard of the car when we're driving, or not when I'm driving, but when Mr. Chic Crochet is driving and I'm the passenger. I will sit it in the floorboard and use it like that because, like I said, I will use my project bag, but this is so much better. I just hate going back to the project bag and putting my yarn down in there and using it like that. And if you try this yarn holder, I'm sure you're going to see why. I just don't like to travel without it. I have seen some people experiment with the ones that have a wrist strap. I think I even saw Lisa Rose Crochet do this. She had a wrist strap and it dangled like this from the strap, and you can carry it and use it like that. I just don't see me ever doing that, and I can't carry this along, but there's also not a moment that I feel like I'm going to be walking and crocheting. That would be really dangerous for me. I'm not that coordinated. And I don't know why I would want to. I just don't see that happening. But anyway, if I put it in the floorboard of the car, it still feeds off just fine. It just goes up instead of down. The gravity of it going down is going to be a more natural flow. But if I am using it in the car, I still feel like the natural tension of me, just my natural pull that it's going to feel from my hand, it feeds off just fine. I never have to stop and yank it. So if you were wondering how this would work, I hope all this little experimentation has answered your questions and you've gotten enough information from this to discern if this is a tool or gadget that you want in your crochet arsenal. I would not really call this a gadget. I think gadgets that word is reserved for things that are helpful but not necessary, because I consider this a tool because it is helpful and it is necessary. I would declare this necessary in my crochet, and a gadget is just more of a luxury. So that's my opinion. You can take it or leave it, but I feel pretty strongly about this little tool. So who do I think this would be good for? I believe it's good for any crocheter or knitter. It's good for those who use most any type of typical yarn. If it's a very unusually thick yarn or may have some sort of snagging texture, maybe that wouldn't work, but for most of the general yarn uses, it's great for that. If you're tired of yanking and tugging, or if you're tired of chasing your yarn, it is a great tool. But if you want to become a faster, smoother crocheter, it's definitely your tool. Those who it may not be the best for might be those who just only crochet occasionally and you just don't need another extra thing sitting in your home, or if you just make a few small things at a time and you're just not a prolific crocheter or a daily crocheter like a lot of us are, it might not be for you. You just may not need an extra tool. If you have a really special yarn bowl that you love and you're attached to and you've used it for years, this may not be for you. You may just prefer to stick to your yarn bowl. For those of you who make plushies and use a really big, thick yarn, it may not be for you. But even though I don't really have those yarns in my stock and I didn't experiment with them, I think you might want to at least try it, because as long as it's no thicker or heavier than something like this, it's probably still going to be a good fit for you. So all in all, 6 months later, this isn't a gadget or a tool that ended up in the closet or ended up in a drawer. It has become a beloved part of my crochet routine. If I lost every crochet accessory I had tomorrow, this would be, next to a hook and yarn, this would be the first thing I would replace. Absolutely. For me, this yarn holder has genuinely changed and improved the way I crochet for the better. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Summer's daddy was off work today, so she was just too busy playing with him to be interrupted when I started filming, so I know you've missed her. She'll be back next time. So go crochet to your heart's content, whatever tools you use or don't use. But most importantly, remember, my friends, to let your light shine and always stay chic. Bye-bye.
Chic, chic crochet!